Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, most talked about tools for tackling climate change, carbon pricing. We're going to look at what it is, how it works, and maybe most importantly, how governments figure out which version is right for them.
Okay, so let's just dive right into the core problem, right? For a long time, the real cost of climate damage just wasn't there. It wasn't factored into the price of fossil fuels. So the big question for policymakers is, how do you fix a massive market failure like that? Well, the answer that more and more countries and regions are landing on is this really powerful economic idea. You basically turn pollution from something that was free into a real cost, something that shows up on the balance sheet.
And here's the key thing to get. This isn't some complex regulation telling a company exactly how to be clean. Nope, it just makes polluting more expensive, and that, right there, unleashes innovation. Suddenly, everyone has a financial reason to find the cheapest, smartest way to cut their own emissions.
So what's so great about this approach? Why are so many people turning to it? It turns out the benefits go way beyond just cutting emissions. It's much more than that. You can think of carbon pricing as kind of a policy multi-tool. I mean, yes, it drives emissions cuts in a really cost-effective way, but it can also raise a ton of revenue. We're talking over $100 billion globally back in 2022. And that money can be used to fund green projects, cut other taxes, you name it. It also spurs new tech and gets countries working together.
Okay, so once a government decides, yep, we're going to price carbon, they immediately hit a fork in the road. There are two main ways to do it, and each one is based on a totally different idea of what you want to control, the price or the amount of pollution.
So path number one is a carbon tax. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. The government just says, for every ton of carbon you put out there, you owe us this much money. It's simple, it's predictable, and you can often build it right on top of existing tax systems, which means you can get it up and running pretty fast. For businesses, the big win is certainty. They know exactly what the cost is going to be.
Path number two is what's called an emissions trading system, or ETS. You've probably heard it called cap and trade. Now here the government does something different. It caps the total amount of pollution allowed in the whole system. Then it issues permits to pollute, and companies have to buy and sell them. So this gives you a guaranteed environmental outcome. You know emissions won't go over that cap. The trade-off, the price of those permits can go up and down.
And this table just lays it all out, doesn't it? It really highlights that central trade-off. With a tax, you get that price certainty. Businesses love that for planning. With an ETS, you get emission certainty. Environmental groups love that for hitting climate targets. So it really boils down to what a government decides is its number one priority.
So, which one's better?
Well, here's the interesting part. According to the World Bank, that's completely the wrong question to ask. The right choice depends entirely on a country's or region's own unique situation. You have to look at these four key areas. What are your specific environmental problems? What does your economy look like? What's actually, politically possible? And do you have the government bodies in place to manage the system? At the end of the day, you've got to pick the right tool for the job you have, not the job someone else has.
Let's look at British Columbia in Canada. Their main goal wasn't just about emissions. It was actually part of a bigger plan for tax reform. They wanted to lower income taxes and corporate taxes. And to do that, they needed a steady, predictable stream of new money coming in. The carbon tax was perfect for that.
Now let's contrast that with the European Union. Imagine their challenge, trying to get 27 different countries to agree on a single hard emissions target. A single tax rate? Forget about it. That would have been almost impossible politically. But getting them all to agree on a shared cap on pollution, well, that was something they could actually do. For them, an ETS was really the only logical choice.
Okay, so how does a policymaker pull all these pieces together? The theory, the options, the local context, and actually come up with a real recommendation? Well, it's not a random choice. There's a clear process, a kind of journey.
It's really a three-step dance. First, you assess the landscape. What are our goals? What does our economy rely on? Second, you analyze your options. You run the numbers. What would a tax actually do versus an ETS? And then, finally, with all that evidence in hand, you can recommend the tool that's the best fit for your specific needs.
And this is so important to remember. Carbon pricing is not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve everything on its own. It works best when it's part of a bigger package. With things like support for renewable energy, better efficiency standards, investments in public transit. Think of it like this. Carbon pricing is the engine, but you still need the rest of the car to get where you're going. And what a government decides to do with all that money it raises, Well, that is absolutely crucial for making it fair and getting public buy-in. I mean, this isn't just a small detail. It can literally make or break the whole policy. That money can be given back to citizens as a carbon dividend, it can be used to shield low-income households from higher bills, or it can be plowed back into green tech. How that money gets used is key to making the policy stick.
And that really brings us back to the central challenge. The best carbon price isn't some universal formula. It's a local one. It all boils down to that one simple question. What exactly are you trying to achieve? And the answer to that will point you down the right path. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.